evening. To some places, is good morning. And to other places, look, I'm going to say aloha because we're in Hawaii today with my cousin Donald, and I appreciate him coming on. But before we get started, I just want to say welcome to all of those that will be joining us and those that will be watching later. My name is Leslie Montgomery. This is LKM Kingdom Living, Leslie's Lessons Learned Facebook Live. And we're just so excited to be here with you today to continue our conversation. We've been talking about different facts of life that helps us through life, that helps us live a better life, and to bring all those things together. So for so long, we just lived life. And we lived life without having things in order, without putting things together. And today we're going to be talking about that. We're going to be talking about nutrition. We're going to talk about a few things. My cousin is a advocate for seniors, and we're going to talk some about that. I'm just so glad that he's here joining me today. And I have a video to show you before we get started.
Aloha. There were four people standing at the foot of Mount Everest. The first person was a celebrity who was filming a public service announcement extolling the beauty and grandeur that is Mount Everest and imploring people not to pollute it as they ascended and descended the mountain. The second person was a PhD who's written extensively on the geography, topography, and climate changes that occur as you ascend and descend the mountain. The third person is a medical doctor who has examined more people
Uh-oh.
who have made the climb than any other medical doctor. And the fourth person was a Sherpa who holds the Guinness Book World Record for making the climb up Mount Everest more times than any other human being. Now, when you get ready to actually climb Mount Everest, which one of those four people do you have the most confidence will be able to take you to the summit and bring you back down to the base? The year 2023 represents 51 years that I have been practicing whole food, plant-based nutrition. The year 2023 also represents 45 years that I have been the Guinness Book World Record holder in the name of advocating the concept of whole food, plant-based nutrition. I hope that after you've read my book, New Jump Swing, Healthy Aging and Athletic Nutrition Program, as well as reviewed my resume, you will find that you and I will be a good fit for me to help you fulfill your goals in life. Until we meet again, this is Donald Spider-Man Thomas bidding you aloha.
So we want to say to you aloha today. You know, you
Aloha, cuz.
you got a lot of stuff going on as always, and we're just so happy to have you here today with us. I'm excited for the conversation that we're going to have. Now, one of the things that before we even I want you to tell them about yourself a little more, add to what we've heard, but I want you to talk about the Spider-Man part before we even go into the health part. When I Dono is my second cousin, his mom, no, his mom was my second cousin. He's my third cousin. His mom was also my godmother, and today is her birthday, and he says I want to do it on mom's birthday, so we're here celebrating her as well. Rosa Thomas, which was an amazing woman. She taught my children how to make rolls, and i, I miss her coconut pies because I don't get it like she used to make them anymore. And just her willingness. I used to call her the mayor in Burlington because she was always advocating for somebody else. So that's probably where you get it from. Or
That's right.
you know, and she's always been standing up for someone or advocating for them. So, we do miss her dearly. We miss her dearly, but I believe she lived a pretty good life. Ashley says, "Hey, cousin Donald." So, you've been in Hawaii for years. You left
Since
Brooklyn.
1981.
How many?
Since 1981.
Yeah, yeah, that's a long time. So you're really not you're from Hawaii now.
Well, I lived in Hawaii longer than I've lived in New York. I lived in New
Yeah.
York for the first 27 years, and I've been here in Hawaii for over 40.
Wow. Yeah.
43 to be
You
exact.
went there and you said, "This is my home," and you came back to visit, and that was it.
Well, the truth of the matter is, as we discuss things, I did that Guinness record in 1978. I didn't, it was too late. I did it in September of 1978. It was too late to get into the 1979 Guinness Book. So once I got into the 1980 Guinness Book of Records in the name of promoting vegetarianism in particular, I started writing to various places that had a healthy climate. And because part of my program is healthy aging, I looked into all of the states that had the greatest longevity. And so when I wrote to Hawaii, I got a very good response as a result of having proof that I did that Guinness record to promote vegetarianism. A vegetarian bed and breakfast made me an offer of 50% off in lodging to come to Hawaii. So, half off, I can't argue with. And so that's how I got to Hawaii in November of 1981, and been here ever since.
Yeah. Yes, he has a beautiful wife, Pam. She supports him. They've been married. How many? 20 what? How many years?
28 years, 28 years this June.
28 years. They've been married 28 years. And
You came. You can verify.
yep, yep. It was an awesome experience when y'all got married. It was just the whole time being there was really a awesome thing. We've had fun. I was in love with the culture um, tour we did, and
Mhm.
that was just so much fun. That was just a part of it. The whole trip was really a good trip. We was able to stay on the beach. We was able to. Linda said, "Hey, cuz." We were able to just do a lot of things. A lot had we did a lot of activities. We enjoyed being there with even the family that came.
Yes.
And that was our first trip to Hawaii. So, tell us a little about Spider Man before we get started.
All right. Well, I look back at my life and I say I've always kind of been somewhat ahead of things. The Amazing Spider-Man came out in 1962, and I became a fan. Another cousin by the name of Juan Waiters, he came by the house one day on Amboy Street where I lived in Brownsville, and I had some Superman and Aquaman comic books. And he said, that's white bread. Let me take you to the store. And he took me right to the Puerto Rican bodega up at the corner, and that was the first Spider-Man. Spider-Man number 18 was the first Spider-Man comic book I bought. And
Wow.
I fell in love with the character.
Do you still
Um,
have it?
well, here's the point.
Okay.
I am a collector of both Black Panther comic books and Amazing Spider-Man.
Okay.
As we are speaking here, there are approximately 910 issues of the Amazing Spider-Man. Before I sold them on my store, I had 909. So I needed Amazing Spider-Man number one to have the complete Amazing Spider-Man collection. So that's one of the reasons why they call me Spider-Man. I also got the nickname Spider-Man when I was a camper at Tilden Canarsie Day Camp in Brooklyn, New York. And because I used to do a lot of running and jumping, and everybody knew I was into Spider Man, my nickname became Spider Man and Spider. So I've had that nickname for quite some time. Now, who knew that, Spider Man is a multi billion-dollar franchise today? But it was just something that appealed to me, just like the Black Panther. And I own the complete Black Panther comic book collection.
Do you? Is it in
Um,
your store?
the Spider Man is for sale. The Black Panther, I still collect Spider-Man, Black Panther, but I
Can't
do
by
have
yourself.
a large collection of Black Panther in my comic book store as well. And
Okay.
one of the things about me promoting the comic books is that I was always promoting literacy. And if children like whatever makes a child want to read, that's something that I'm always promoting. And so the idea of promoting the comic books was also a way of promoting literacy and the joy and the fun of reading.
Okay. That's cool. Um, so yeah, I just wanted you to tap on that for a moment because uh, that's where I thought I was sending your stuff to your Spider-Man email, but I guess it it wasn't going there.
Didn't go to that one, no.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I miss New York, being at y'all's house in Brooklyn, and that's where I heard hot fun in the summertime and Wildflower and Let Her Smile because she's a lady, all
Yeah,
those good
yeah,
songs and just
yeah,
being
yeah,
over there. So, there's things about New York that we have history.
definitely.
We pretty much kind of grew up in New York, and
Oh yeah.
then you moved to Hawaii, we moved to Jersey. Your mom worked in New York till she retired, then she moved to Jersey where we were, you know. So Brooklyn, hey, in the house, Brooklyn in the
Yeah,
house. So, yeah, go ahead and tell us about. No, let's start with the Guinness because you got three Guinness Book of Records.
correct.
So let's start with that.
All right. There was a school of nutrition and philosophy called the Tree of Life that was located on the corner of 125th Street and Malcolm X Boulevard. And one night I was going to a party and the party wasn't there. And I was walking down the street and I saw this bookstore. And as soon as I saw the books in the window, I said, man, this is the place I need to be. I came back because I was going to college on 137th. And so this bookstore was on 125th. So one day after college, I went down to that bookstore. And before I saw the man, I heard his voice, a gentleman by the name of Dr. John Moore. And Dr. Moore was an herbalist. And as I just stood in the back and listened to what he was saying, I said to myself, I found my teacher. And over a period of years, I bought many books from the Tree of Life. And then I did my doctoral thesis. I have a doctorate in metaphysical philosophy, martial arts philosophy. And it was the Tree of Life that provided at least half of the books that I use to do that. The whole point of me doing the first Guinness record was to demonstrate the things that the Tree of Life had to offer, as well as to demonstrate the concept of sports nutrition. I did my record in 1978, which was the same year that Dick Gregory did his run from California to New York. And
Wow.
when they asked him what did he use, he said he used a nutritional formula 4X. Years later, that formula 4X became the basis for the Dick Gregory diet. Same year that he did that, I did a 93-hour world record. After 93 hours, I was able to jump rope and still talk. I presented my book as the 93-hour record. And since the book was advocating sports nutrition, internal energy, physical fitness, then by presenting the actual book, I was giving a presentation of what I say the concepts in the books could do for you. So, as I had said to you before, I'm an OG, not original gangster, original Guinness.
Right.
I was in the Guinness Book of Records before they had an entry fee. Right now, it's a $600 entry fee, $800 if you want them to expedite reviewing your entry. I never
Wow.
had more than $500 total for any Guinness Book World Record that I went for. But when I first found out, I was reading a magazine called The Vegetarian Times. And I saw in that Vegetarian Times that there was different people who was trying to break Guinness Book World Records to promote vegetarianism, not only good for health, but for athletic performance. And so in that vein, I said, okay, I went to the Grand Army Plaza Library right there in Brooklyn. And I asked the librarian, well, what's the significance of this Guinness book? And they explained to me that the Guinness Book is a reference book. You can't take it out of the library. I don't care what the record is. If it's in the Guinness Book of Records, you had to have enough proof that you did it, that it could stand up in a court of law. And since I saw how much respect internationally that Guinness Book of Records had, then I decided that I would use the Guinness Book as a way of demonstrating my program of health and fitness and nutrition. My goal was 3 world records in the name of demonstrating my program. Every record that I did is based upon the book that I wrote, so that my books are the actual Guinness records. And that was a way of giving my books a certain amount of status beyond the lack of money that I had for advertising. You know, if you go right now and you try to do anything, you're talking thousands or tens of thousands of dollars. Like I said, I had $500 total for any record that I went for. But as I was saying to you, 1978 through 1988 is when I did those 3 Guinness Book World Records. 1978, there was no such thing as Facebook or social media.
Right.
1978, there was no such thing as energy drink. And so these are things that I was, as I say, I am a pioneer of the concept of whole food, plant-based nutrition.
Right.
There's a medical doctor that I have a tremendous amount of respect for. His name is Dr. Michael Greger, and his website is nutritionfacts.org. As a medical doctor, he's able to get the complete scientific studies on things regarding nutrition. I went to the library. All I could get was the abstract. I couldn't afford to get the whole study. Those studies will cost you tens of thousands of dollars to be able to get on the bureaus to get those studies. My point with Dr. Greger is that Dr. Greger is 51 years old, who advocates whole food, plant-based nutrition. When he was in the 1st grade, I was in the Guinness Book of Records for promoting whole food, plant-based nutrition. So wow. That's when I say I'm an OG. Right now, if you go on YouTube or Facebook and you go to any of the groups that are promoting vegetarianism, unless they're 45 years or older, I was the world record holder before they were born. And that doesn't take away from what they're doing, but I simply have no intentions of ever being denied what I have done. And in the name of Black history, 125th Street is a very famous corner. Anyone who is someone who has given a speech at some point in time on 125th Street. Right. I'm in the Guinness Book of Records for giving a 93-hour sermon on the corner of 125th Street and Malcolm X Boulevard.
Right.
So I got to keep on keeping on. Whether I have the money to promote, I have the accomplishments. And I will always put more energy into qualification than money. Money can buy you publicity, but money can't buy you world records.
No, they sure can't. And I every time I gotta applaud you for it. Yay, that's my cousin. That's my cousin. Yeah. So I want to say shalom to those that are on. That's from the UK. Pastor Jackie. Hey, thank you so much for joining me. And not just the UK. Wherever you look watching from, I want to say welcome, welcome, welcome. We're glad to have you here. Now, there's a few points before you get to the advocate part. In the nutritionist part, one of the things you just mentioned was energy drinks. And there's so many bad energy drinks out there that people are drinking. And can we touch on that for a minute?
Most certainly. My latest book is titled New Jump Swing, Healthy Aging and Athletic Nutrition Program.
Stop, because we also got to talk about that.
Okay, well, what we're going to talk about with the energy drinks is in that book.
Okay.
One of the points that I made.
Okay, so how many books you have?
3.
Right.
And one of the points that I make in my book is that for all practical purposes, what they call energy drink is just a new form of caffeine delivery system. What's giving you the energy in 99% of the so-called energy drinks is caffeine. And so one of the points that I made in my book is that if you go to the supermarket or the health food store, you can get a bottle of 200 milligrams generic caffeine and get yourself a bottle of B-complex. Most of the energy drinks, one shot of that energy drink doesn't equal 200 milligrams of caffeine. So you can get all of the caffeine from a caffeine tablet and then some for a third of the price that you're paying for all of these so-called energy drinks. And the energy drinks, to a large degree, is just, as I say, it's caffeinated sugar water.
Right. Yeah.
That's what's giving you the energy. 5-hour energy is allowed to call itself 5-hour energy because the amount of caffeine in 5-hour energy has been proven to last in a person's body for approximately 5 hours. That's why they can legally call themselves 5-hour energy.
But it's
But
bad for the heart.
it's caffeine.
It's bad for the heart.
It's bad for caffeine can cause you have racing of the heart. Caffeine in my up to 400 milligrams, medical doctors consider it to be generally regarded as safe. But you have people who are trying to run a marathon. How many caffeine, how many Red Bulls can they drink in a night, and all this sort of stuff. Uh, After doing my first Guinness record, I became aware of the fact that there were two young people who died as a result of trying to stay awake for 2 days to play video games. And they were on different sports drinks, but they're drinking too much of it. You can't sit up there and drink all of that caffeine without having negative side effects.
Right, right, right. And there's a lot of young people that are kind of hooked
Young people who are into sports who think
Right.
that, oh, if I drink this, it's going to make me faster, it's going to make me stronger, et cetera, et cetera. And, that's where good nutrition, sports nutrition is nutrition as compared to something like caffeine. And there are places that caffeine can be used and is allowed in the Olympic Committee up to a certain amount.
Mm,
But there are so many things that the athlete can rely upon and include within their diet long before they get into the caffeine that will not only give them energy, but will allow them to recuperate after they've worked out or they've competed, etc. And that's where I was coming from with all of this. Again, nowadays, it's very popular. You hear about athletes are now going on a vegetarian diet. Well, this is 2023. In 1977, 78, that was considered kooky.
wow, wow. So what made you start jumping rope?
Good question. Knee surgery. Spider-Man. Part of being Spider-Man on my block, we had something called the tip. We used to jump off roofs as a part of the initiation. And at the age of 12, and I write about this in my book, at the age of 12, one day I was playing a game and I bent down, and no sooner did I bend down, I had a sharp pain in my left knee. And I shook it off being a kid. And a few days later, I had a pain in my right knee. I didn't have it formally diagnosed then, but as time went on, I had a knee disease called Osgood-Schlatter disease, very common among active boys, and now it's more common among active girls as well. Right underneath the kneecap, the bone literally kind of pushes out. Even to this day, both of my knees, you'll see the bone, it sticks out. The surgeon didn't want to shave that down. He just kept it. I had approximately 12 pieces of bone chips removed from each knee. And while I was recuperating in the hospital, I read a Runner's World magazine, and on the cover, it had a story about jumping rope. And the whole point of jumping rope was that, unlike running that has you coming down on your heels with 2 to 3 times your weight, rope jumping teaches you how to jump on the balls of your feet and stay light. And so there was an exercise that I felt that I could do that wouldn't harm my knees. And that's when I first got into jumping rope. And as time went on, I developed the jump rope program. And then even through the American Heart Association, one of their largest fundraisers is the Jump Rope for Heart. When I got to Hawaii, they recognized me as a master teacher and a master performer in the Jump Rope for Heart. And they sent me to more than 60% of all of the schools in the state of Hawaii to promote nutrition and jump rope skills. The island of Maui, where you have the devastating fire, I've given jump rope demonstration and presentations to that entire island because the person that was on that island for Heart Association was very enthusiastic. They would pay for me to come over there and stay overnight, give me a car so that I could drive over to the Hana side, which is, it's very difficult to get over to that side. So, I've been promoting jump rope and the heart health benefits of rope jumping for as long as I've been promoting nutrition, which has been since the late 70s, 80s.
Right. Yeah, so I jump rope maybe to jump with the children, but never really serious. And you used to make jump ropes and you sent us one.
Yes.
You sent it to Adrian. Yeah, you sent Adrian the
Yep.
jump rope. Yeah.
Now, my program is called New Jump Swing. And one of the whole points about my program is that I want you to swing the rope at least a third of the time. I'll be 70 years old next month. I laugh. I said, I don't jump as much as I used to. I swing more than I.
You do a whole lot of swinging.
But the point is that for someone, if you have a bad back, if you have bad knees, if you're just now getting back into exercise, swinging the rope will warm up your muscles, will warm up the shoulders, will develop your sense of timing and rhythm. If you're swinging, if you sway, then it will also warm up your hips. For those of us, male and female, you do a lot of sitting. As we get older, the hip muscles get very tight. And so just swinging that rope, hold the handles in both hands and just swing back and forth. That's a good way of warming up and loosening up your muscles. So the idea of New Jump Swing is that you jump to music, jump to whatever popular music you like. And the idea is that you just don't try to sit up there and jump. When you get tired, you swing. You feel rested, then you go back to jumping. And this way you can perform the complete exercise without killing yourself. You also need to warm up. And as I always explain to people, when you're swinging that rope, you always make sure that there's no one in back of you, because even if you're being careful, the rope could come out of your hand. So the idea of New Jump Swing is to help the person enjoy rope jumping, as well as my particular jump rope program is specifically designed to help people warm up for whatever sport they're in. So I have techniques if you hold a racket for tennis, or if you hold a club for golf, or if you play basketball, then there are different swinging techniques that you can do to help warm up to get started doing those things.
So if we're playing golf, are we swinging the golf club?
That's right. Yeah, you're holding the hands, and so you're swinging that rope just like you would swing that golf club, and that's going to work your shoulders and develop your sense of timing and rhythm and so on. So the whole idea is to use the rope as a warm up for all other exercises, as well as, of course, as a sport and an exercise all by itself.
Okay, so this is good to know. I'm gonna swing a rope.
Swing more. That's right. Don't think you have to sit up there and jump. No, you swing.
Start swinging the rope.
Swing it. That's right.
If I had thought about it, I would have told you to give us some illustrations of swinging the
Yeah, I on my YouTube on the YouTube channel, there should be a jump rope demonstration on one of my YouTube channels. If you go to YouTube and just put in Philosophy of Divine Nutrition, there's an interview with me, as well as there's a jump rope demonstration at the end.
Okay, yeah, and all his links is in the description, so feel free to get on them and find out what you can do differently. So I'm gonna let you go. You said you knew what you wanted to talk about. I done held you up long enough, so I'm gonna let you go with it and go ahead and finish talking from this aspect.
One of the points what motivated me to do these records so much was that this is one of my dogs, as I got more and more, I had knee disease. Working in a mental hospital, I wound up having workers' comp injuries, left side of the shoulder, neck, back, and so on. And as I began to get more and more into health and nutrition for myself, I saw a common theme. When I went to the Heart Association and I looked at heart disease by race, African American was a risk factor. I went to the Cancer Society and I looked at cancer by race, African Americans a risk factor. Diabetes, African American was a risk factor, as well as Native Hawaiian and Native Americans. And so as I began to read more and more books on health and nutrition, as much as I was getting the scientific information on nutrition, I was not reading anything that made me, as an African American, really appreciate just how significant all of this so-called health food was to me. Of all of the people in America with heart disease, I was a part of a group that have some of the highest rates. Of all of the people with diabetes, I was a part of the group that has some of the highest rates. And so in the 1970s, even you told me this one time, when I was talking this stuff in the early 1970s, a whole lot of Black folks thought I was out of my head when I was talking this. As time has gone on, especially with COVID-19, we found out something called minority health disparities. African Americans, Native Hawaiians, Native Alaskans have some of the highest rates of heart disease, cancer, diabetes, obesity, etc. That has been a significant issue in every Guinness record that I have done. All three of my Guinness records were done in Harlem. The sermon was done at the Tree of Life. The two after dinner speeches were done at City College of New York on 137th, which is where I also attended. And every record that I did was designed to bring attention to the disproportionate rates of heart disease, cancer, diabetes, etc., that African Americans have. One of the things that I brought up was that an African American male from a high risk urban environment, in other words, the hood,
Right,
has one
right, right.
has one of the shortest lifespans and life expectancies. African American babies have one of the highest rates of infant mortality. Uh, Before she was vice president, Kamala Harris had pushed the legislation to bring attention to the fact that African American women had one of the highest rates of maternal death, that is, death as a result of giving birth. These were statistics that I was not really able to see in even many of the Black media. Unless a Black celebrity dies from heart disease, I really couldn't read anything in Black media about heart disease. Or they died from cancer, then I might read something about cancer. But the fact that Black people have some of the highest rates of these illnesses across the board should be something that I should be able to read in Black media every day.
Right,
Uh,
right.
I should be able to go to a Black radio station and they have at least a 5-minute health segment teaching me about diabetes, obesity, heart disease, etc. You know, it's funny to say this, but many years ago, I had people that would say, "Oh, you pushing all of that white people food." Well, health food is not white people food.
Right.
Collard greens is not white people food. You know, uh, we as a people, any Black person listening to me now, all you have to do, if you have an elderly family member, you just sit down with them and ask them, what did they eat on a regular basis? You can go to Kentucky Fried Chicken and get 12 chicken legs right now. Nobody on a farm killed 6 chickens. Okay, okay. So there's a big difference in how we eat, the amount that we eat, the amount of physical activity that we as a people are not engaged in now as compared to the physical activity we were engaged in years ago. Not to say that
That's true.
slavery was good for us or even Jim Crow was good for us, but the point is that we were far more physically active as a people years ago than we are now. So we have the typical American diet, which all of the nutrition people are telling them is bad. But then we have on top of that, let me give the best example of the difference in our culture. How many people could I go to their house right now and go into the kitchen, go to the stove, and there's a Crisco can? And that Crisco can is where you keep the lard. And every time you fry something, you take it from that can, and then when you finish frying, you strain it and put it back in that can. That can contains what is referred to as saturated fat, and in particular, trans fat. Every time you take that fat and heat it over and over and over again, you make it thicker. That is one of the worst things that you could do for your heart, for your gallbladder, for your circulation. And so that is a very common practice among people of color, reusing that saturated fat. So if there's one thing you remember that I said today, you have to get rid of that Crisco
Get
can.
rid of it. And I did last time. I don't know. You was on, I don't know, a few years ago. We had a conversation and you mentioned that. And I was like, okay, I need to get rid of that.
Yeah, that is a major source of trans fat, which has been banned in many states. You can the state doesn't allow you to make foods that has the trans fat because even in relationship between, but you can't really separate saturated from trans. But the point is that trans fat is recognized as being the worst aspect of fats when it comes to heart disease. And again, heart disease is the number one killer in America, number one killer in the world. African Americans have some of the highest rates of heart disease. So if we as a people could just focus on the things that will be good for our heart, that same thing that we focus on good for our heart will also be good for diabetes, for cancer, and so many other things.
Mm.
And so, and everything starts somewhere. If you're not going to get rid of the Crisco can, the next thing I want you to do is get into the habit of drinking more water, and not just from the faucet. Excuse me. I don't sell any particular water filter. The Zero water filter is a very good water filter, even Brita or Pure. But the idea is that you need more water in your system. Before you buy any cosmetics for your skin, If you drink enough water every day, you will see the difference in the appearance of your skin just from drinking more water and keeping your system flushed. So drink more water, get rid of the Crisco can.
Yeah, those are excellent points that you made. So, I was going to ask you something about, let's talk about the thank you for all that information, wealth of knowledge, the um, the side of you being an advocate for seniors.
Okay, what happened with me is that, as I said, what paid the bills as compared to what was my passion. Health and nutrition and fitness is my passion, but mental health and advocacy is what paid my bills. Um, right out of high school, even before high school, for 2 summers, I worked in the pharmacy at Kingsborough Psychiatric Center. So from the earliest days, I was aware of medications and what they could do and what they could not do, as well as side effects of medications. Same month I graduated high school, I had a civil service job working at Kingsborough Psychiatric Center. I was also a psychology major at City College. Over the years, you find out, if a person is quote unquote mentally retarded or has developmental delays, there's a look that they have. An adult with mental illness looks like anyone else. And so there's a tremendous amount of misunderstanding and even hostility sometimes towards people with mental illness, because there's an expectation that they should act a certain way when you're not realizing the fact that this person has an illness that is causing them to act the way they act. So as someone who was very much involved in mental health, I wound up being a disability advocate. Every state in America has something called Protection and Advocacy Agency. The state of Hawaii has a protection and advocacy agency called Hawaii Disability Rights Center. And when I was an executive director of a mental health agency, I was then invited to be on the board of that Disability Rights Center. I stayed on that board all the way up to being the president of the board of directors of the Disability Rights Center. One of the things that I found out was that in the mainland, if you will, African Americans have some of the highest rates of disability. And so advocating for disabled people became a way for me to advocate for people across the board, as well as to focus on the needs of my own community. Senior citizens have the need for advocacy because as they reach a certain age, there are people who will try to exploit them, abuse them, take their money, etc., etc. I also became and have been for more than 10 years a Social Security disability advocate. And that has been a tremendous, such a fulfilling role that I have played, because you have people that have worked hard all of their life, and then they come up with different illnesses and they can't work. And one of the things that I learned many years ago, even if your case is as right as rain, without proper advocacy, you still may not get what is due you by right.
Right.
And so it was always such an honor for me to be able to represent people who were disabled, and when I say disabled does not mean that you're non-functional. It means in the eyes of Social Security, it means that you can't get up and do 8 hours a day, 5 days a week like you used to, either because of arthritis or heart condition or neuropathy or any other sort of illness that you have. Social Security in America is the most difficult disability program to get into in the world. You really have to have all of the proof. And so working with Legal Aid had a contract with the Department of Health. Anyone in Hawaii that was on welfare, they wanted to send that person to Legal Aid to see if they could get them off of the state welfare and get on to Social Security. So I work with more people than any lawyer in Hawaii, simply because the lawyers don't take anybody. They take you only at the hearing stage. Because I was Legal Aid, I took them from day one. And because I work with people from the earliest stages, now that I'm a life coach, one of my services is to help people develop their case for Social Security as tight as possible, in theory, so that they could get their Social Security at the application stage. But that's very difficult. But at least I will help people to get everything that you will need to make your case, even if it takes a year and a half, which sometimes it will take that long to get. So seniors, people with disabilities, which kind of goes hand in hand, blind, aged, and disabled. That was a contract that I was a part of, even for a insurance company here in Hawaii that focused on making sure that people blind, aged, and disabled were getting the necessary health programs that they needed. So, I've lived a life of advocacy, and you are so very right.
Your
When
mama.
I was 5 years, thank you. When I was 5 years old, I remember my mother making me, if I had a toy that was still good, she made me give it to another child. If I had clothes that was still good, she made me give it to another child. So there's not a day that goes by that I don't thank God and mother for the talent that I was born with and the instruction and the guidance that I was given. Rosa Thomas didn't have a high school diploma or a GED. She raised a son that can write books on science and break 3 world records with $500 budget.
Yeah, she was an awesome woman.
Awesome.
She was an advocate for you,
Oh
and
yeah.
you know she supported you. She was your cheerleader. Whatever you did, she was pushing the family, trying to encourage the family to back you and support you.
Yeah. Well, that's what they say. They talk about, like, say, the Jackson Five or Beyonce or Tiger Woods. They had parents that were their managers. My mother was not a momager. She was not a manager. She was an advocate. My mother never told me you should get into A, B, and C.
Right.
I got into A, B, and C. If it was something that she thought was clean and intelligent, she backed me 100%.
She was
But
so proud of you.
yeah, she was not a pusher. She was a supporter.
Yeah, she sure was. So, your wife, she's still Pam. She's from Hawaii, and she still works in the field. Um,
Of mental health, yes.
mental
Pam, as I people ask me about Pam, and I say to Pam, I say, my mother backed me 100%. My wife backs me 110%.
health.
Uh, I married the woman who wound up being the record holder in my world. I married the woman that was willing to go the farthest with me for the longest period of time in everything that I'm sitting here right now talking. If you come to my house, my refrigerator reflects what my book says. My house reflects what my book says. So I was able to find a woman that was willing to go along with these things. When I met her, both her mother and father had recently passed away from heart disease. So she was kind of open to the things that I was talking about. She has 2 sisters. One sister was born with type 1 diabetes.
Mm.
And so, she was kind of open to these things that I was talking about. And as time went on, she was more and more willing to kind of support me. When I was teaching jump rope, she was there at the jump rope classes. I tease her now. I said, "You got me for a husband now. You don't jump rope."
You don't know no more. She wheeled you in.
But then, I want to say for about 15, 20 years, Pam also danced hula. And
Right.
she was even good enough she went to Japan with her halal to perform. So she,
Wow.
as I say, it's all about some sort of physical activity that you, the individual, enjoy. If you have a dog, take the dog for a walk at least 4 times a week. If you have a garden, get into that garden and work in that garden for at least a good hour a day, and so on. Anything that you enjoy that keeps you physically active, that's what counts. One of the things in my book, and I'm seeing it more and more, there's something now called the blue zones.
Oh,
Blue zones are places in the world where people live to be 90 and 100 in good health. In America, there's only one place, and it's Loma Linda, California, among the Seventh-day Adventists. There are people in Sardinia, Italy, Icaria, Greece, as well as Okinawa. And all of those places, part of what gives them their long life is their ability to engage in activities throughout their life that keeps them active. Maybe they're farmers, they do yard work, they have gardens. One of the things in Okinawa from the earliest years, they have groups of at least 4 or 5 people, and they try to keep that group together till the day they die, so that they always have a social network of people. When I came to Hawaii, I had a friend that I met when he was 4 and I was 6 years of age. His name was Ronald, my best man at the wedding. And Ronald and I were friends up until his passing several years ago. And I can really say how much I miss that guy simply because he's somebody who can remember the days of Amboy Street and all of the things that I went through and so on. The first days I got into all of this. And so having some sort of connection with past friends, even if it's just one, that is always very good for your mental health as you get older. One of the things that I had to accept is, if you live a healthy lifestyle, by definition, you're going to outlive some people that you know. And you
Right.
have to be prepared for that. Now, that same friend of mine, Ronald, one of the things that he taught me about life, regardless of how much of an example a person can be, until the individual is ready to make certain changes in their life,
You never
the
will.
changes are not going to happen. I have been a vegetarian since I was 19 years old. Ronald know me from the first day. Every day of his life, he started off his morning with a Newport cigarette. Okay. And so, regardless of how much he had an example of someone, until he was ready to change, he didn't change. And that was so important for me because it allowed me to accept the fact my job is not to try to change people's minds. My job is to present information to people that they can understand and give them the respect to use that information or ignore that information. But me knowing what I know, the fact that I could leave Brownsville and come to Hawaii and be the president of the Protection and Advocacy and be the celebrity chairperson for the Heart Association. I was on the board member of the Waikiki Rotary Club and all of this. It demonstrates that what I was talking about, I knew what I was talking about. And this is why it was on me. Of the 3 world records that I have, all 3 were done in Harlem, 2 of the 3 after I moved to Hawaii,
Right.
because I knew that I had information that could help people. But it is only there if they are interested. If they're not, I still love you. But I have something that can help you, and it's my duty as a human being to at least do my best to present it.
That's true. That's true. Yeah. Thank you for coming on. Of course, I'll have you on again, but this was really good. There's so much information to be taken away. And my Guinness Book of Records is knowing you for a long time. I remember when I would be at the house and that time you was lifting weights and I was lifting weights and your mom came downstairs and had a fit that I was lifting weights.
And now you have female bodybuilders and everything else. There was
Yeah.
a time when women not supposed to lift weights. And so, listen, there was a time back in the 1950s, I know of, there's a particular man, they almost tried to arrest him because he was advocating that people should exercise more. Excuse me, so many things that's considered to be common knowledge in 2023, in 1963, as again, it was kooky, plain and simple. That was fanaticism. I always quote, there was a medical doctor, Dr. Michael DeBakey. He was a very famous heart surgeon. And back in the 1970s, they asked him, what about nutrition and heart disease? And he said, the jury's still out. If you go right to the American Heart Association's website right now and see what they tell you about nutrition, everything that our whole world record's talking about, they'll tell you.
Wow. This was always when we were children was almost my favorite time of the year, August, because that's when Anna Letha and Uncle Frank came from South Carolina, and you guys would come from New York, and we would just be able to play and have a good time or whatever. So this was always a favorite time for me. I was just sitting here thinking, I said, wow, it's August and it's around the time. And then everybody would go to New York to Uncle Johnny and Aunt
Yes.
Marie's house and have our
Uncle
party,
Shaft.
cookout. Yeah, Uncle
Uncle
Shaft.
Shaft. When the first Shaft movie came out, Uncle Johnny had a brown leather coat like Shaft. Oh, that's what we call him, Uncle Shaft from then on in.
Yes, yes. Me and Brenda, of course, Brenda, she's gone on now, but
Yes.
we went on the room and we called him on the phone and said, made like we was calling some of the ladies from the bar, and we was like, we just called this. What's your name? He said, John Shaft.
Uncle Shaft.
So
Yeah.
yes, those were some good times. But thank you for coming on. Before we close out, I don't know if there's anything else you would like to say.
Just, I guess you say a shameless plug. Right now, if you go to my website, newjumpswing.com, my book is now out in ebook, as well as it is now out as of 3 weeks ago in audiobook. So I know that there's plenty of people while you're driving, you can listen to it. If you have your tablet, you can have it on your tablet as well. The most important thing that I really just wanted to get across is the fact that every journey starts with the first step. Listening to me today, I don't expect you to walk up to your refrigerator and start throwing everything out. Like I said, I want you to remember, try to get a good water filter and drink more water every day. If you can start off the first thing in the morning with a good glass of water, unless, of course, you have to go to work, then you wait till you get to work before you drink that because you have to go to the bathroom while you're in the car. But if you can get into a good habit of drinking water first thing in the morning and throughout the day, and then, as I say, get rid of that Crisco can. Even though there are olive oil can be expensive, but you can get something called rice bran oil or olive oil. You try to get virgin olive oil because if you just get regular olive oil, it's usually mixed with other oils. Uh, and while you can continue to fry, you don't need a whole lot of oil. If you just do an experiment, whatever amount of oil you normally cook with, just try and cook with half of that and see if you don't get the same results. And if you do, then that begins a process of you being able to cut down on the oil period that you're using. So I want to thank all of you for listening. I hope you get a chance to go to my website, newjumpswing.com. If you're into comic books, it's called theblackArachknight.com. Arachnite as in Spider Knight or Spider-Man. And as I said, the whole point of the comic books is to encourage young people and all people to read more. You can't promote nutrition without telling people to read. And so the idea of reading is fundamental.
I love it. I love it. I love it. So, what are some, and I know everybody's different. What are some, I guess, vitamins before we go that you would recommend?
Again, shameless plug. You go to my website, and my first book written in 1977, I had a 2-page breakdown of something called flower pollen. Flower pollen is the very foundation of my program of nutrition. Dick Gregory diet, when that Dick Gregory diet came out, along with the Dick Gregory diet, they were also promoting flower pollen. When that company went out of business, another company took over called Graminex. And I have been selling the Graminex flower pollen since the 1980s. It is something that I take every day. For men, it is very important. It is very effective for the prostate gland. For women, it has been found to be very good for urinary incontinence, as well as for men, urinary incontinence. Flower pollen would be the natural vitamin mineral supplement that you would need. So flower pollen is on my website. If you're over 50, the Center for Disease Control recommends that everyone, regardless of whether you're a vegetarian or not, you should get a B12 supplement. You can get B12 is very cheap. You can get it in the drugstore. Get the kind that you can put under your tongue. Everyone over the age of 50 should take a B12. If you have any kind of tingling under your feet or your fingers, can be sometimes the beginning of neuropathy. That B12 will help you. So flower pollen, which you can get on newjumpswing.com, B12, which you can get at any store.
Okay. Good information. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. And once again, thank you everyone that has joined. UK, I appreciate you being here. Philadelphia, California, I know you'll be on. If you're not on now, you'll be on later. Jersey is in the house. My family's in the house today, and Delaware, wherever you're listening from, there's people that are on here that I've seen that I can't even say the country, but I appreciate all of you being here. This was an amazing conversation. I'll have you again. This is my cousin, for real, Dr. Donald Thomas, and we thank you so much for being here. Join me on Sunday on Sunday at 9 a.m. Eastern Time for Leslie's Lessons Learned YouTube as we continue this topic of forgiveness. Uh, and they're not even my guests. We'll have Team Childs on there, and Wanda Floyd will be on there, and we will continue our conversation there. So until we meet again, which will be next Thursday, I believe it is, and it'll be Leslie from 1212 Community talking about the C, what is it? The COE of your household and how to begin to organize things and make sure that things are in order. And when it's time for you to depart, that you have everything in order for people, that they don't have to be scrounging trying to figure out what to do and how to do it. So until we meet again, have an amazing rest of the day. Tina,
Aloha.
yes, aloha. Tina is from Washington, I think. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Linda's on here. Ashley's on here. Anna's on here from Brooklyn. And we have Tiffany on here. Like I said, the UK, Pastor Jackie. Um, just a host of people on. And we want to say thank you for being here. And may you join us again next time. And as my cousin said, aloha.
Aloha. Take care, everyone.
Yeah.
Thank you for having me.